So I wanted to share another song today, and I got to tell you, I do this with a little bit of nervousness because I've heard some beautiful renditions of songs that folks have been doing on Facebook, and so in my doing this song, it's not for the performance, but it's for the particular song and the words. So anyway, I just want to sing this song and talk about it a little bit, and talk a little bit about worship. It goes like this. When the music fades and all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth, that'll bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within, though the way things appear, you're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. All about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, when it's all about you. All about you, Jesus. There's another verse of that song, and if you want to hear it, you should Google Matt Redman, because he's the one that wrote that song, and there's some really wonderful versions out there of that song. But I wanted to sing that one, and I've talked about this song in worship before. And as we begin to anticipate worshiping again in a more public forum where we are allowing people to come into that place of worship, I know things are going to be different. Things like passing of the peace will probably have to go away for a while. Places where we would pass offering plates or get acquainted pads, those kinds of things, that's going to go away. Things like communion, the way we used to do it, where we would be able to rip a piece of bread off the common loaf and dip it into the cup, that's probably something of the past, at least for a while, for sure. But the other thing that is, folks are saying, is probably the most difficult thing to do in worship, probably one of the most dangerous thing, is singing. Can you imagine? I mean, singing without, or worshiping without singing? What's that going to be like? How is that going to feel? What are we going to do? People have talked about, even if you tell people that they can't sing in worship, what are you going to do when they burst into song? Because that's what they're used to, and that's the way in which God moves them. I get it. Worship and song have gone together for a long time. In fact, listen to this psalm, Psalm 100. It says, "Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness. Come into his presence with singing. Know that the Lord is God. It is he that made us. We are his. We are his people and the sheep of his pasture. Enter his gates with thanksgiving and his courts with praise. Give thanks to him. Bless his name. For the Lord is good. His steadfast love endures forever, and his faithfulness to all generations." So it's a great psalm. It's a great psalm, but it starts it right there. Make a joyful noise to the Lord, all the earth. Worship the Lord with gladness, and come into his presence with singing. Singing. What's worship going to be like if we strip away all of the music and the singing that's a part of our worship service? Well, you know, that's what that song was about, the one that Matt Redman sang. Heart of Worship is the name of that song. And that first line, "When the music fades and all is stripped away and I simply come." You know, that idea of stripping away music, that wasn't just something that he thought of and put in the song. It was something that he actually experienced. The church where he was the music director, they decided to do that. They decided that music was becoming such a focal point to what was happening, and it was becoming so much of a performance that they began to say, what would happen if we took music out? Would we be able to bring our praise to the Lord still without music? And so they tried it as an experiment, and Matt Redman said he was nervous to try it when they began doing it, but they began to find, he said it was really awkward in the beginning, but he began to find that he was freed up to worship in a new way. You know, I think about that. I think about when we start worshiping together and we don't have public singing as a part of that worship. What are we going to bring? What are the offerings that we are going to lift up to the Lord? What's it going to be like? Well, if we make our joyful noise to the Lord in different ways, it will still be pleasing to God, because you see, that's the whole point of worship. Worship is about the love and the adoration that we are showing to our God. It is not ultimately about us. It's about God. I used to love this quote. Was this idea that came from Soren Kierkegaard, a Danish Christian thinker and writer. He lived in the 1800s. And he compared worship to a play. Kierkegaard complained as he looked at how worship was being done, and he said, too often we imagine that the minister is the star actor or the actress in the play, with the choir as the supporting roles, and the congregation is just there in the audience. In fact, in Kierkegaard's view, he said, it is we, the congregation, who are on the center stage, with the minister and the choir coaching us to do our best to God, who is our worship. You know, maybe as we begin to worship again, when that time comes, and when the music fades and all that we've become comfortable with is stripped away, perhaps we will find the heart of worship. And perhaps we will need to find new ways to connect with the God that we love. So it will happen. I don't have the exact date yet of when we are going to be gathering to worship. I know there's other churches that are beginning to do that even now. We've got some things to figure out to make sure it's safe before we do that. But when we do, the invitation for you is to come to the act of worship that you are giving to the audience who is God, and allow God to hear not just from your voice, because your voices may be more silent, but from your heart. What's going to be lifted up from your heart to the God you love and the one you worship? May we prepare ourselves even now for when God will come to us in that time of worship.